Saturday night in Acapulco, a town already renowned for its energy and excitement. Tonight, it prepares to electrify the tennis world. Rafael Nadal is back. David Ferrer is too. Preparations have been finalized as the two prepare to clash. David Ferrer was tested by Fabio Fognini in the semifinals, but he emerged with his 19th straight win here into his 4th consecutive final. Rafa Nadal took on good foe and friend Nicolas Almagro, but beat him for a 9th straight time. Two more good friends from Spain will battle for the Waque and the title as champion of the Abierto Mexicano 2013. Hello and welcome to highlights of the final of the ATP 500 event from Acapulco. This is Kevin Skinner alongside Doug Adler, bringing you coverage of what looked like being an epic classic between reigning champion and top seed David Ferrer of Spain against second seed and compatriot Rafa Nadal, a man looking to recapture his best form following a lengthy absence from the game in 2012. We join the match right at the start.
And another problem facing Ferrer tonight that we mentioned, he hasn't beaten Nadal on clay since 2004, but he also has been starting rather slowly. And when you haven't beaten somebody, you've got to get out of the gate quickly.
And one of the areas where David has had trouble is with the forehand. It has not been as steady and solid as we're so used to seeing. There have been moments where he's been a little erratic, had some difficulty framing balls into the stands, just things not on point.
Damien Demissois confirming that was the correct call by the lines person. And that's been one cause of concern this week for the Ferrer camp with Pilas. David has been up and down a little more than normal, hasn't been his normal consistent self. But when he's gotten in trouble, Kevin, he's become very aggressive. He has served better and he's come in.
Something you can say about both Spaniards this week. When they've had those moments, been under duress, they've used the middle of the court to their advantage. And already pressure upon Ferrer's serve.
Well, you could tell that Ferrer was tentative with that forehand approach. He wanted to come in, but he wasn't quite sure where he should hit it. And that little bit of delay really hurt him. He didn't get in close enough. Nadal just dipping that ball at his feet.
Ferrer's serve has been vulnerable the last couple of rounds, broken twice by Fognini in the semis.
You know, we talk about comparing games. Tennis is all about matchups, and as good as Ferrer is, we talk about all of the intangibles that he brings to the court. Nadal brings the same ones, and he just does everything a bit better, and that's why he's had the ability to really make life miserable for Ferrer. Well,
Ferrer's upset.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Ferrer's upset, wants Demissois to come down and take a look at the mark. Ferrer, we already saw him have a conversation with the chair umpire in his semifinal. Has not been pleased with some of the calls, particularly with the chair umpires that come down to the surface. And he's not going to win this argument. Demissois says it was good. And a second break point for Rafa. Ferrer, while being a bit erratic at times, was able to hold serve the majority of this week. Only broken 4 times previously, but he suffers an early casualty to his service game as Nadal moves out front 1-love.
Rafael.
223 days after that loss at Wimbledon to Lucas Rosol, Rafael Nadal returned to professional tennis in Viña del Mar, managed to push through to the final, would lose to Horacio Zeballos, then traveled to Brazil and proved worthy of winning the title at the Brazil Open for a 51st career title. And here he is in another final, his 3rd in as many events since his return.
And you mentioned the name Lucas Rosol. What's happened? Where have you gone, Lucas Rosol?
That's a good question for Horacio Zeballos. He had a nice performance this week getting through to the quarterfinals. It's good to see that he didn't just go away after a big victory over Nadal. One of the rare victories over Rafa on the surface. Amongst all the success, Rafa has lost just a total of 20 matches on clay.
And after Rosol won that incredible match, 5-setter against Nadal, he's just won a couple matches. He certainly has been no Rafa. And right from the get-go, Kevin, you see Nadal bullying Ferrer all over the court. He really doesn't feel there's much Ferrer can do to hurt him. The fact that Ferrer doesn't miss as so much of a backboard doesn't faze Nadal because he plays similarly and can take it up an extra notch. That performance last night against Almagro by Nadal, I felt was the best I've seen from him since he's come back. And he really seemed to be totally in control and very confident when he needed to make the points.
Yeah, it was such a good test for him, too, because despite the loss to Zeballos, he really hadn't found a moment to really be able to play the old Rafa game. And against Almagro, he needed to. It was required to get through that. Even though it was straight sets, it was a test. Nico really put everything into it he could. But once again, Rafa proved too good himself.
And it was just electric last night. Lots of drama, high intensity, the crowd sort of wondering which one was going to show up, and he's come out really well tonight. And Ferrer on the big points here, that second serve, 15-30 you saw, did nothing with the second serve. One of the things that Pilas told me that really bothers David against Nadal is that high spinning serve and forehand that bounces so high, because Ferrer's just 5'9", and it really affects him in his ability to do what he wants to do. We always hear about how high the ball bounces, but there's a coach saying it really bothers his charge.
And just a little too much for the approach for Ferrer. And Nadal has consolidation of the break for 2-love. And for Rafael Nadal this week, Doug, one of the aspects that has been so impressive is Rafa came out against Schwartzman, was broken in his opening service game of the tournament. That hold right there was his 36th consecutive.
I guess he hasn't been broken since. Learned his lesson. I don't like the way that feels, he told himself. But you sense that Ferrer's forcing it. He's pushing. He's missing some shots that he would normally not miss against other players. He's got to stay within himself, stay in the comfort zone. You know, that's so easy for me to say, right? Stay within yourself. You've lost to the guy so many consecutive times on this surface. Overall, your record's poor. How do you get that selective memory? How do you get over the hangover?
And what's so remarkable about this is they have such an affinity for each other. They're close friends. They really appreciate what the other brings to the sport of tennis, the work ethic off the court.
That's what I'm talking about. I'll tell you what, you mentioned, Kevin, that they're close friends, but this is a lopsided friendship. How can you beat your friend 16 of 20 times? That's not very nice.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. I mean, how can there be such a discrepancy? I mean, you would think that a friend with another friend, when you have this much familiarity with each other, you'd find a way to get in there, make your mark. But Rafa has just been merciless.
Narcissist.
Keeps going back for more, and he's about to fall behind 3-love.
On that backhand coming in, that was merciless. He got there in plenty of time. Not a good drop shot by David. Remember, Ferrer has not beaten Nadal since Nadal was pretty much a mere baby on this surface back in 2004. Nadal still had his baby fat back in 2004.
He would win his first title that year. Nadal in 2004. It was not against Ferrer at Stuttgart. But then when 2005 came around, the floodgates opened for Rafa. "11 titles that year, would go from 51 in the world to number 2 at the conclusion, and he would win the title here in Acapulco.
And rarely do you see Ferrer losing extended points from the back against anybody.
Rafa, one of the best returners in tennis, last year led the tour in first serve points won against his opponent's serve, break points converted, and return games won. And he has broken Ferrer for a second time.
It's getting ugly.
Things are moving very quickly, and they favor Rafa Nadal in Acapulco. We were talking about 2005 and the fortunes that befell Rafael Nadal, and it was an unbelievable year for him.